Well, last fall I cut down a few black locust trees to mill up here. I'm going to do a timber frame style front porch on my house. It's going to be 10 feet out from the house and then 21 feet across. So I need 3 beams across, 2 10-footers, and I'm going to do a scarf joint to lock 2 of them together to make my 21-footer. And I need 3 posts to support it. So here are my timbers. I'm roughly milled them into squares just to get the bark off and to get them out of all the snow and mud. So I'm going to do 6x6s. These are the biggest one here is probably almost 9x9. Most of the bark is off. Some of it still is on there. So what I'm going to do is I just put a brand new blade on. I'm going to put them on the mill, square 2 sides, and then get them down to the final dimensions. So I got a couple braces already up on the mill. I was measuring them and getting my head wrapped around everything. I'm going to do 4x6 diagonal braces, and then 6x6 posts, 6x6 beams, and it's just a really small hip porch roof, so it's really not going to be much weight there. So I'll put a clip of one of the trees I cut down. All the trees came from either my property or the neighbor's property. He was nice enough to let me actually cut some of the trees down. He hates black locusts because they grow like weeds. I like them because they're hard as a rock and perfect for building. So I'll throw the clip in of me cutting the tree down, and I'll show you what I do with this. Okay, in case you're curious what black locust looks like, here's a view down some of these timbers here. It's a really cool green color in there. This thing's about 8.5, so I'm going to cut it a little bit heavy, probably 8 1/16, just for the blade thickness. And then I'll have 2 inches to spare, so I'll get 2 pieces of 1x out of here that I can use for trimming the base of my posts. So it's 3.5 from the top to the pith now, and then it's 5 on the bottom. So if I take off my 1/2 inch off the top and my 2 1-inch boards off the bottom, the pith should be centered in the brace. Okay, so what I'm doing now is, since the left and right sides are both flat and parallel to each other, I'm checking the blade, and I am squaring off this side, which, I mean, I'm like a 32nd away from being square right here. I am going to check in a few spots, but if I can get a nice square piece, it'll make my life easier. If there's one thing I learned from Jim on the Tradesman's channel is make sure your stuff is as square as you can get it. I did a few practice pieces, and yeah, it makes a huge difference having them square. Made a scarf joint out of a very unsquare piece of cherry 4x4, and it turned out horrible because it was just so far out of square. Saying the same thing, the bottom is maybe a 1/16 out of square. So I am going to see if when I crank this down, if it will actually push it square or not. Alright, so here is a finished 4x6 for one of the braces. That should be as close as I can get to square. Check it. That side's really close. And that side's perfect. So this one's good. This one here is a 9x9 right now. I milled them up in the middle of winter, so it'd give them some time to dry. Now that it's starting to move, it's actually got a little bit of a bow this way. So whenever I cut it, it'll flatten everything back out, and I'll take it from a 9x9 down to a 6x6. The only reason I even did anything to them so far was just to get the bark off. I didn't feel like sitting there fighting with bark, so it was easier just to cut 4 sides off. So I'm going to go ahead. I have 6 more posts and beams sitting right over there, and then this guy here. This is the biggest. I did the math on it. I think it's about a 400-pound beam. So manhandled that, got it up on the mill myself, and then it ended up dark. So this is another day. 7 o'clock, I'm going to go ahead and clean up the sawmill. I ended up getting 5 of the beams or posts done, and I have 4 left. A couple of them were pretty bad, so I might have to get another tree or two and get something a little bit prettier. I'm going to have to try to work around it. Some of them had some pretty ugly knots that you couldn't see from the outside, and then once I cut into them, they were pretty rotten inside. Some other ones, the trees were just so bowed that the pith was too close to the outside. I don't really like it, so I'll see. The good thing is they're like 11 feet long, so for an 8-foot post, I can take a couple feet off and get back to the middle, so I'm not as far out on the banana shape there. But I got a lot of 1x and stuff for the trim. So I'm going to go ahead and get that stickered up, get the sawmill cleaned up, and see if I can go do something. Enjoy the nice weather, the last hour of it. So hit you on the next one. Willow.